Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Scott Morris. I am the Director of Business Development for Gaming for GTS Distribution. We're back with another one of our retailer to publisher webinars, and this time we are joined by Devir Games. Make sure to pronounce that 100% correctly. We've had a couple of jokes about that already this morning. But Devir Games is here with Marcelo and Matt. Matt is actually in Spain right now, so he's living the high life and enjoying everything. Marcelo is not in Spain, but he's still enjoying the high life and enjoying everything within life. We're going to talk about a couple of different things today. We're going to talk about new releases. We're going to talk about restock of some really popular games and some things that are coming up. But this is a company who right now has, in my opinion, one of my top five games of the year. I absolutely love this thing. It's called Red Cathedral. I could gush on it for an hour just in front of everybody right now, but I don't want to steal Marcelo's thunder on it. But I will tell you that it is absolutely superb of a product, and we'll get into that as we go through. But really do appreciate everybody taking the time to join us. If you're here live, of course, you can ask any questions you would like by just hovering over the chat bubble. Go ahead and type in anything you'd like to either the hosts, which are myself, Marcelo, and Matt, or to the host and the attendees, and then everyone will see the answer questions. Or if you're watching this recorded on YouTube, you could be exceptionally awesome and give us a like and a subscription and a notification so you can get updates on when we have new webinars available. Just for the record, we're recording this right now on November 8th, 2021. This is actually going to be the last board game webinar for this year. We're actually going to pause them from here out for the board games. I believe there's one more coming up for supplies, but we're going to make sure to kind of give all the retailers some time to focus on end of year sales, end of your inventory, all those fun things that make up a crazy Q4 that it's going to be. And then we'll pick them back up again in January, which we've already got Gamelin Games and a couple of other people scheduled for January. So that's going to be kind of crazy as well and kick things off. It's amazing to me. It's November. I don't know where this year went. It feels like yesterday was January and now it's November, and it's just been nuts. So with that, I have talked more than I need to. Marcelo, my good friend and fellow Prince lover, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So, and don't forget Matt. And Matt, did you want to take this one? Do you have the presentation up?
No, please. I'm just here to listen. Go for it.
Okay, great. All right. See, kind of like the wrestling thing, we're used to tag teaming on this kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
So, all right. So, good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. We have some exciting stuff to show you. And I might as well just go ahead and begin with the Red Cathedral, because Scott has been really literally gushing over it since we got him a copy of it a few weeks ago. And so let's see if I can do this right.
For the record, I have played it 11 times in 3 weeks.
Oh,
Nice.
you've beaten me, that's for sure. Right on. I'm going to share screen and share that one. All right, so this is the cover of the Red Cathedral. It did come out last year, and then it completely sold through. And we've sold through again earlier this year. And then, of course, as you know, with the global shipping crisis, it's been a challenge to get this back into stock. However, we hope, we're crossing our fingers, that we will have this back before the end of the year. This game has been almost like catching lightning in a bottle. It's a fantastic game. For those of you who are unfamiliar with how it plays, the theme of the game is that all players at the table are the architects who have been tasked by Ivan the Terrible to build St. Basil's Cathedral in Moscow. The way that we do that is we're going to be working with guilds and acquiring resources, and we're also pledging our work to building certain sections of the tower. Now, that in a nutshell is the Red Cathedral. Once one player has completed 6 building projects on the towers themselves, then the game effectively ends. We calculate our points based on who built the most of each of the individual towers that are on there. Now, what I will say pretty much forever as what the coolest thing about this game is that it is ultimately replayable in a way that a lot of other games are not. If you have a group of players that you play with regularly and you play the same game, we'll say like 4 or 5 times, it's almost a foregone conclusion how that's going to play out, because everybody gets settled into their strategies about how they're going to play it. And at that point, it's just simply, how do the cards come up? How do the dice fall? Things like that. The Red Cathedral has a lot of variables that go into setup of the game, but the gameplay itself does not change as a result of that. So based on the number of players in the game, that will determine how many towers the cathedral is going to have and how many cards are in them as it lays out. and there are 3 possible configurations for each set of players. So for 2 players, and then for 3 players, and then for 4 players, and so on, right? There's even a solitaire playability that comes in it as well. Then the roundel, where the resources are controlled, the resources that you benefit from those will change every game, right? The bonus workshop tiles that you will get from positions on the tower also changes each game. So every time you set this game up, there's something different about it from the previous time that you played this game. And
And
so
don't forget the guilds also.
yes, that's true. Yes, the 4 guilds are also going to change in terms of what they could do. There are 3 cards for each of the 4 guilds, and where they are positioned on the board itself will also change with each game. So it's the kind of game where you may win the last game with a particular strategy that may not work the next time that you play the game. And so it's the kind of game where you have to look at the board, decide how you want to approach that board each time that you play the game. So it's got a lot of replay value. And you can see by the way that, Scott says that he's played it 11 times in the last 3 weeks, right? That it's you can easily come back to this game over and over again. And once you know how to play this game, even a 4-player game will take about an hour, right? So it's also not a long game. And as Scott always loves to point out, I'm calling you out on this one. As Scott always loves to point out, it is a lot of game inside a small box, and guess what? It all fits.
That's my favorite part, right? Like one of the big discussions that's been kind of happening throughout this year is, of course, logistics and shipping and the cost and all that stuff going on. And I've been saying for like 6 or 7 months to people, one of the things that I think the smart publishers are going to have to do is look at how do you condense the box? How do you take a game that should, normally ship in a 12 by 12 box and get that down to a Carcassonne size box? Or how do you get something in a Carcassonne size box down to a Munchkin size box? And the environment we're in, I think a lot of people are just leaning towards, well, let's just raise the SRPs. And that does make sense logically and on the base of everything. But I don't want to call any specific game out. But if you were to look at a game that comes in the size of like a Carcassonne box, and if you could suddenly condense that down to the size of a Munchkin box, keep it the same SRP, so you're not having to increase your SRPs, but densely fitting more into it for the value of the product, that helps you from a publisher standpoint because you're able to fit more products on the container and on the boat, and you're going to be able to divide your shipping cost amongst more units, which is just going to help from a profit standpoint. But it also helps the retailers and the distributors from a standpoint of physicality and dimensional weights and shipping. When it comes to how many games I can actually physically fit in a box and I'm shipping to a retailer for their order, that helps get more games in that box and make it better. When it comes to shelf presence and being able to fit more things in their shelf to get more dollars per square foot, so to speak, that helps the retailers as well. So anything that, and I'm not saying by any means like cram it in, right? Like I'm not saying like you have to densely pack things in so much that like you have no room for like sand molecules in between things. But if you can cut down 15 or 20%, that saves environment, that saves costs, that saves everything. And I remember when you first sent me my copy of Red Cathedral, one of the very first things my wife said when we were sitting down to kind of set it up, I just kind of kept pulling stuff out. And she's like, geez, it's like a clown car. I'm like, yeah, and there's gems and there's root, like there's all this stuff, right? Like it fits, like it's not all like crammed in here, right? Like it all fits. And it's funny because having played it so many times, I look at it and it would have been very easy from a publishing standpoint to just say, okay, let's put it in a 12 by 12 box. Let's make the board this big and make the cards this big and make everything this size. And that would have worked and it would not have probably been questioned too much. But the fact that you get so much replayability in this game for the value and the size that it is, that's been the best part to me, is that this isn't just a game, it's a well thought through product. And those are few and far between in our industry. So I'm really, really happy with it, as you can tell. So
yes.
And by the way, if I can jump in, I've had a lot of players at fairs tell me that they really appreciate the size of the box, because it just means they can get more stuff on their shelf. They don't need to occupy an inordinate amount of space. So the consumers really love it as well. So.
So, all right, let me go ahead then and start this PowerPoint presentation that Matt and I have been using. All right, so let's start with, these are our top 10. These are our best sellers, and you can see Red Cathedral is right there at the top.
Your screen is not sharing for some
Oh,
reason.
you're right. I didn't share screen. Let me
That's
try that
okay.
again.
We can make everybody guess, but I'd much rather them see it.
True.
So,
There we go. Okay, so let's do that. And there we go.
there you go. Awesome.
Much better. No, now start it. There we go. Okay. All right. So our top 10, right? And you can see Red Cathedral is right there at the top. Now, one of the other things that we're really, really happy about with regard to the Red Cathedral is that recently the Red Cathedral itself cracked the top 500 greatest all-time list on Board Game Geek. So, and that's within a year of its release. So it is not a flash in the pan kind of a popularity kind of a game. I don't think that we would have got that far if people didn't really truly love this game. I myself, Matt and I have discussed this a couple times before. Actually, is that even if I did not work for Devir, the Red Cathedral would easily be in my top 10 all-time favorite games because it's got that much replayability and excitement in the way that it plays. Number 2 is the Color Monster. That one is always a great game for us. It's based on, for those of you unfamiliar with the Color Monster, it is based on a children's book of the same name. This one has the book itself. If you look online, the book itself is very, very well received. It has over 5,000 unique 5-star ratings on Amazon. And I know that we don't want to really name the gorilla in the room on that one, but that takes quite a bit of effort to get that many people to give the book a 5-star rating. So it's very well loved. And the game itself is a playable representation of what goes on in the book, where the players around the table are trying to help the Color Monster sort out his feelings. Part of the game is also sharing your own feelings about it. So it's an outstanding family game where parents and children and other family members can share these things that are of concern to them, like, or what makes them happy and what makes them feel loved and what makes them feel sad and things like that. Very, very replayable. Also, it definitely goes to the youngest side of players on this because you can play, the box itself says 3 and up, but honestly, any child that is able to verbally or even non-verbally communicate, to their family, whoever they're playing it with, is able to play this game. Number 3 is Paris.
Hold on.
Oh, sorry, go ahead,
Marcelo.
Matt.
One other thing about the Color Monster is, it's comes in a beautiful big box, and it's only $30. Going into the holiday season, it makes a really great gift. Like if a grandparent or a parent came in and they wanted to get something they could, play with their grandchildren or children, it's a great item to recommend. They're going to go away happy, and it's in stock. So we have stock of this, which not everybody always has stock. So right now, because of the logistics crisis and whatnot, so this is almost a no-brainer if that kind of customer walks into your store. So,
and transparently, if anyone doesn't see anything on this list or any, whoops, what just happened there? Is that on you guys?
nope.
Not for me.
I don't know what that was.
Oh, man, we've
Mike
been infiltrated.
I'll have to edit that. That was weird. Never had that happen before, so I'm not sure. If anyone for any reason is possibly unmuted, let me know. It looks like everyone's muted, so I'm not sure what happened just there. So what I was going to say though is if anyone doesn't see something on this list or anything from Devir that you are looking for that one of our warehouses may not have in stock, let me know. Shoot me an email at smorris@gtsdistribution.com. Generally, we try to keep all of our board games between Washington, Missouri, and Florida. Those are the 3 biggest ones that kind of hit everybody within 2 days. But if you need something in a specific location like New York or Southern California or anything like that, or if you're just not seeing something that you're looking to get, let me know, because as long as Devir has it, then we want to have it. So that should not be an issue. They're also very quick to turn things around to get stuff to us, because it's not like we're having to ship anything in or import anything in from outside the United States. So all that should be very easy.
Okay.
Cool. All right. So then the next one are our next two, Paris and Holmes. Those are our two very specific two-player games. And these have done very, very well throughout the pandemic because as people have had to stay home, and now that people can start to get out, people are still inclining to stay home and play games. And so these are very good. They're specifically two-player games. Paris, La Cité de la Lumière, the City of Lights, is a two-player game, and I'll come more about that with regard to its expansion as we get further along here. But excuse me, that is a specifically two-player game where you're building Paris's city-light grid. So it takes place during the 1889 World's Fair. Paris has transformed from gas lamps over to a full electric grid. The game plays in two parts where the players are each now taking their own tiles and building the city grid that will hopefully benefit them in phase 2, where you will score points mostly based on how many street lamps illuminate the buildings that you own. Because the more buildings that illuminate, the more lights that illuminate your building, the more people that see it, the more people that will come there. Right? So that's Paris. Holmes is infinitely replayable because it is not a game about solving cases. Like if you were to play, say, like Consulting Detective or 221 Baker Street or games like that, once you solve the cases, or if you've actually read the Conan Doyle stories, right, then you kind of already know who done it in those cases, and they're hard to go back to if you already know who done it. Holmes, Sherlock, and Mycroft is not that kind of game. One player is playing Sherlock, the other is playing his brother Mycroft, and what we're doing is on 7 turns or 7 days, we are trying to collect clues about an unnamed case. We're collecting sets of different types of clues and working against each other to get the most of each of the specific types of clues. The cool thing about the game is that it does have characters from the stories because each of the days or turns that you're playing through, a new character, secondary character from the stories comes into play, and they have a specific action that we're able to utilize throughout the game. So again, like the Red Cathedral, the setup and how the game continues to play out throughout it changes with each game. So Sherlock is never the same game whenever you sit down and play it. And the same thing for Paris because the players have control of how the grid gets built and how those tiles come up in your own hand of tiles to play. It will always be a different game each time you play. The cool thing is that as a two-player game, they don't take long to set up, and each game takes about 20 minutes to play through once you have it all set up and ready to go. The last time that I played Paris with my girlfriend, we were done in 12 minutes because we've played it so many times. We totally know what we're doing in terms of coming back to the game, getting it set up, and playing through the game. Number 5. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, just one thing with both of these two-player games, I'm really confident in saying that if you put these in the hands of your customers, if somebody comes in and they're looking for a two-player game, something they can play with their partner or whatnot, they're going to be happy with the recommendation. These are both really safe recommendations. The games are very good. And so it's a safe bet for retailers.
Yeah, I purge games every year at the end of this year timeframe. I always tend to take like about 100 or 150 and donate them to either local retailers or charities. And Paris and Holmes are never leaving that collection because they are like tops with my wife in terms of two-player games. And they are some of the easiest and best games to like travel with and take with because their boxes are very small. And it's going to sound kind of cheeky, but the playing in the box of Paris never gets old. Like that just is constantly like you would think it would just be like a kind of a tchotchke kind of thing, but it's just really, really fun to do. So yeah, those two are always going to be in our list.
Well, and the other good thing is they don't take up a lot of real estate. Like no joke, when we were able to and are now being able to get back to, my girlfriend and I would go to our local brewery just to sit down and and have a drink. We would take one of those two games with us because they don't take up a lot of space on a tabletop. And if your customers are pressed for physical space, these are great games for that purpose, right? Or for setting up a demo. Sometimes a game is so big you only set up in your store a demo of part of a game because you don't have a lot of room to show it. These two games, you can set up a demo of the complete game laid out, and it will not take up a lot of space. So there's that as well. All right, number 5 is Mayscape. So Mayscape, there are two titles, Mayscape Labyrinthos and Mayscape Ariadne, and they're small box. These are great stocking stuffers. These have just come back into stock in our warehouse, so we'll be shipping those to you within the next couple of weeks. Actually, probably, I think we're going to start shipping it to you next week to the warehouses. These are perfect stocking stuffers. They can literally fit in a stocking, right? They're $10 retail, and what it is it is a puzzle activity, right? They're mazes that are numbered from 1 to 7. They do get progressively more challenging as you go through. Young players can play this. Adults can play this. I still have trouble with map number 6 in the Labyrinthos set. What makes these unique is that it is a unfolding map, and you can play it two ways. You can mostly just go from I want to find the start and get to the finish, and you'll notice when you open up the map itself that there is no way that those two connect immediately. So you have to continue unfold and perhaps refold back to open up certain passages that ultimately get you to the objective. Now, the coolest thing about this, however, is that the second way that you can play it is a little more video game-ish in the sense that there are objectives that you must achieve before you exit the map. Like you have to open these 3 gates, but in order to open these 3 gates, you have to find these 3 color-coded keys, or you have to find these treasure chests, and then and you have to flip the switch on the lighthouse, right, before you exit the map. So there's 2 ways to play each one. Again, there are 2 sets. This is definitely the kind of product where, like for the holidays, if somebody receives one or buys one, and then with the time that they have to play through them, they're going to come back and buy the second one, or just buy them both outright because it's just a $20 purchase, right? To get and it does come with a stylus. It has a wooden stylus that also comes in it, so everything you need to play it right out of the box is in there. Also, one, I believe, unintended benefit of Mayscape is that for people who are traveling during the holidays, the Mayscape maps fully opened fit on the tray table of an airline. So I don't know that that was intended, but I know a lot of people have gone like, oh yeah, it fits perfectly right there on the table. So you're not taking up a whole lot of space by playing this on a plane.
Yeah, because there are 7 mazes and they get increasingly difficult. With the first one, you could probably do it in 10 or 15 minutes. It's not that hard, but the last one, it could take an hour and a half. So along the way, there's really a lot of play time and play value in this just for $10. And because they're replayable, you're not actually writing on the mazes. You're using a wooden stylus. Once you're done, you can give it to your family members or your friends or whatever. And so it's a really good value and a lot of play experience for just $10. So good recommendation for the holidays, I think.
Yep.
And whether the tray size was intended or not intended, go with it. It's a good benefit.
Right?
Yeah.
Again, it doesn't take up a lot of space. Also, this is a line of product, the Mayscape line, we are committed to for several sets. In fact, we have 2 more that will be coming out in 2022. So it's not just that Ariadne and Labyrinthos are going to be the only ones available. We've got 2 more coming and a few more coming right after that as well. So continuing with the list, we've got Silk and Polis, right? Silk is another one of those games where like Scott has been complimenting, it is the same size box and dimensions as the Red Cathedral. Everything fits back in the box, right? It's a game of push and shove, so to speak, because what we're doing is we are all the shepherds of silkworms. Then we're trying to get them to the best grazing grounds. But there is an Okami monster that's running around and he likes to eat them. We have to compete with the other players who are trying to create barriers, to prevent us from moving our silkworms onto the better grazing ground. And we play until everything is harvested or all the grounds have been eaten, and then we calculate our points from there. So not only does it have that random element of danger, which can be controlled by the players as well, but you're also working against the other players in an area control of where is the best places to send your silkworms so that they can graze and then create silk. There's a tie-in to the game world that Silk exists in that we'll come to in a little bit. But then we also have Polis. So Polis is our very big, very beautiful, and very hardy two-player war game of the Peloponnesian War. It is a new version of the original Polis, which came out in 2011. However, if you have those sneaky gamers who like, oh, I own the original Polis, I'm just going to go ahead and download the new rulebook so I can play the new version of it. Nope. We worked with the original designer to create enough difference between the two that they are unique. So they share the same theme, they share similar mechanics, but there's enough difference in the new version where anybody that is hesitant to get the new version might as well just go ahead and do it and bring that in.
And the new board on Polis is so much better than the old. Not to speak disparagingly of the original version, but the new board with this version is dual layer. So the cubes that go on the board get inserted, so they're not jostling around. And the overall production values have improved quite a bit on this version.
Yeah, it's a big, beautiful board.
Yeah, and this is a really good game, and it's not. I've read it described as a war game disguised as an economic game, or an economic game disguised as a war game. So there's like there are games that you don't even go to battle, where it's mostly managing the economics and the resources. The other thing that I read about it that somebody said it was really kind of funny, it was like from the beginning of the first turn, you feel like you have a knife at your throat, because the game can be really unforgiving, and it requires a lot of thought. So for your hardcore gamers who like this sort of thing, this is a really good recommendation. It's a safe recommendation. It's kind of a cult classic, and if that's your bag, just as a gamer yourself, I would recommend you check it out.
But just also note, it is specifically a two-player game. So it's not a big multiplayer, all-encompassing war game type thing. So, all right, Castle Party. I am pleased to say this was our sleeper hit of Gen Con. It was the first game that we sold out at Gen Con. And while it does have a cutesy horror theme, by no means think that this is just a Halloween game. Kind of like The Nightmare Before Christmas isn't just a Halloween movie or a Christmas movie. It's a year-round appreciation of that work. Same thing with Castle Party. Castle Party is a year-round game because of the way that it plays. The basic theme, very quickly, is that the Pumpkin King is throwing his annual soiree, and the players are all responsible for getting his guests into the party as efficiently as we can fit them into the ballroom. So it's a Tetris-ish game, right? In the sense that we are going to be forced to place geomorphic shapes of groups of these different types of monsters into the party, which can become more challenging as they try to fill it up, because all of these monsters, they really only want to hang out with their own friends and not the other types of monsters and friends. And so you're trying to create groups, clusters of the different types of monsters in order to score points for them at the end of the game. One thing to note that's very important about this game, besides the fact that it's, again, a lot of game in a small box for $20 retail, so it's a very good value for for what you're getting in there. The first printing of the game is the only printing of the game that has the special promo in it. This is a transition that we're making with regard to promos being available to the players. From here on, at least until something comes up where we change it, from here on, if a game is going to have a promo, it is not going to be a separate entity or a separate SKU or anything that you would need to receive directly from us or to get from from the warehouse at GTS or whatever. It is in the first printing of the game only, and the shrink wrap on the outside will have a sticker on it indicating that it has the promo in it. So the first printing of Castle Party is already sold through. So the copies that you're getting now from GTS, the copies that you probably receive for a few months or so more, will still have the promo in it, but then say later next year, right, the new version, the new print run that you'll see of Castle Party will not have that sticker on it, which means that the promo is completely gone. And I'll come back to that later because two more of the products that we're going to show you today have that same thing going on with it. Lavinia, great game for the holidays. If you have people coming into your stores, looking for what is a good gift to give to somebody who's not much of a gamer, but they want to play a game. What is a good gift to put into a white elephant exchange? What is a good gift to give for a more sophisticated gamer, but not somebody who's ready to make that jump to playing, say, like Catan or, or Agricola or something to that effect. Lavinia is totally that game. So the theme of the game is very simple. Us as the players are responsible for picking grapes by going down the row of the vineyard and picking grapes. So it is a set collecting game. What we're trying to do is to collect sets of grapes that when we get to the end of the row, we want to sell to the vintners who are looking for specific grapes to basically to fulfill their contract for the kinds of wine that they want to make. So it's a very quick playing game. You can play up to 4 players. And again, you're just collecting sets going down the rows. But sometimes you're going to have to use cards to get better cards because the grapes are stacked. And maybe that grape that's most readily available at the top isn't necessarily the one that you want. The one below it, however, is the one that you want. You may have to collect other cards that will let you manipulate the rows or the distribution of the grapes in order to get what you need before you get to the end of the row. So even in a 4-player game, this is totally plays in about 30 minutes, 40 minutes tops. It is not a long game. It doesn't take a long time to set up. And because of the way that the cards come out, it's almost a different game every time, very much like the Red Cathedral. You're seeing a running theme here with how we incorporate replayability into our games, is that there's a lot of variability in the setup itself, which allows for a lot of replay later on for anyone that wants to go back to it. Again, that's a $25 game in a small box, so it's also a very great gift to have a gift suggestion for you guys, for your customers in the during the holidays. Dungeon Raiders, also a good one, right? Because it's a small game and it's a lot of game in there. It's a card game of exploring different levels of the dungeon, right? Obviously, you don't want to die, and so you're going to go in there and get as much treasure and get as many of the bad guys as you can, and then get out. Also, a quick playing card game, also $25. So again, we're way super down for a lot of game in a small box for a reasonable price. So, all right, let's get to the new stuff. The upcoming releases, and these are ones that we are really, really very excited about having coming out this year. The first one, which is going to be shipping with the restock of Mayscapes, is Luna Capital. Now, for those of you that have hybrid stores where you also sell comic books, a very good tie-in to your comic book fan and gamer group is that the Luna Capitals all of Luna Capital's artwork is original artwork by Albert Montes, who is a 2-time Eisner Award winner, and so that is a name that comic book fans know. He's done the comic book adaptation of Slaughterhouse-5. He has a 6-volume graphic novel series called Universal. So he's very well known. All of the artwork in this game is all original artwork, and it's fantastic. So Luna Capital, midweight Euro fans. This is not a complicated game. It's very iconographic, so it will take the first play a little bit of fumbling through what those different icons mean. But once you know them, it's an easy game to play. Scott and I were having a discussion about this, that a 2-player game shouldn't take you more than like 30 minutes once you know what you're doing in this. And I've played a 4-player game of this that didn't take more than an hour, even on the first play. With experienced gamers, they can easily just jump right into how this game works. So the theme, Luna Capital's story is that we are all building a colony on the moon, and we want our colony to be so awesome that it becomes the capital of the moon. And the way that we are doing that is by trying to take these different life support modules and cluster them in groups. So there's 2 elements to this game that are very cool. One is that it's a card drafting game. You're going to draft a card for a choice of 4 of each turn, which represents the real estate, basically, of your area of your colony. And you have a hand of cards that you're going to add that to, and you're going to expand your territory as you go. And there are very strategic restrictions on how you can lay out the land that you're going to build your colony on. But you also gain tiles that come with that card. And those tiles represent the different modules, either the life support systems or the actual habitats that you have to put onto your colony. But here's the catch. The card that you draw, you're not obligated to play the card that you drew because you have a hand of cards. You still have to play a card, but you don't have to play that card. The tiles that you draw with that card, you do have to play. And that's where it becomes progressively more difficult because you're going to play through 3 phases of 4 rounds each, and each card you draw is going to have more tiles added to it. So in the first round, you get 1 tile with 1 card, but in the second round, you're getting 2 tiles. In the third round, you get 3 and then 4. And so you're going to get to a point where as you're building this, you're like, oh, okay, this is a piece of cake. I can put that there and it shouldn't be a problem. But now you've got 4 tiles to place and you're running out of room of where to put these things, right? So it becomes very challenging to yourself, not just against the players, but how do I puzzle these pieces into my board, onto my colony, in order to most efficiently group together the life support systems and the habitats. At the end of, yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, there's another element as well, which is that the cards have numbers on them. And when you're putting them down, they have to be in ascending order. So like you can't, you put them on a line there and like a 5 can't go before a 3 in the line. And so it creates this element where you're trying to have to decide, okay, which cards do I want to take? Because maybe I have, some needs on the numerical side of things. It just adds to that sort of puzzly element to the game.
Yep. So it's as mentally as challenging instead of being mechanically challenging.
Yes.
Right. These are the kinds of things that you have to take into consideration as you're planning further, but also paying attention to what the other players are doing as well, because you could certainly going to want to score more points and look at the tiles that they are drawing, which it's all public information. Nothing is hidden in that respect, except for the cards that you have in your hand. This one is really good. Like it says in here, gateway gamers looking for more, right? You got your gamers that they've played Catan, they've played Azul, they've played Sagrada, and they're ready to level up, but they're not yet ready to jump to say something like a Feast for Odin, right? Then this is where you go like, okay, here's something a little more challenging. It's only got two mechanical concepts that for people to learn: card drafting, tile laying, right? And it's also, again, a lot of game in a box for a good price. It's $45 retail. And Scott particularly loves this. Everybody loves this, right? One of the things that you're going to love most about the game is that there are elements of the game that you do have to build. Like there's a rocket ship that represents a tower that the tiles that come out later are going to get placed in. There's a card tray for the cards that you're going to draw, right? But check this out. Everything fits in the box built. In fact, there's even a storage tray that you build that to lay out the tiles in their phases A, B, and C, right, for organizing them within the box itself. Everything fits as it's built. And we go one step further. The bottom of the box was specifically shaded to show you where everything rests when you're putting it all away. So the kind of gamers where they're always worried about, like, well, that's a lot of cardboard. Is it all going to fit? Not only does it fit, it actually fits and stays in place. And we show you on the bottom of the box how to fit everything back into the box for easy storage and quick pulling it out and putting it all together on the table when you're ready to play. So now, Luna Capital. With regard to promos, Luna Capital is another one of the games where we have put the promo inside the first printing only. And in this particular case, it is a set of promo tiles that the players draw, because now, instead of just having a generic corporation building the colony, it's important as to who draws what, because each of those corporations with this promo has a special ability that they'll be able to use throughout the game. But again, that set of tiles is only in the first printing of Luna Capital.
Right.
So, all right.
Quick question for you. So Derek had asked a question about restocking Castle Party. He said, do we know when it'll be restocked, and will it still be the first printings? Matt, I saw you jumped in real quick and said that it's going to be very short on the first print run right now. So If you can just keep me posted on that, let me know,
Sure.
what we know and what you know, then we can kind of get that information back over to Derek and share that with him.
Yeah. So just so briefly, we have two different inventory bins, one for our North American sales and one for our Latin American sales.
Okay.
And I can check and see if we can maybe borrow some from Latin America. And if we do, then that will be the first sprint run, and it will have the promos. Okay.
And yeah, so Luna Capital, I gotta say, like the box, the insert, the whole product viewpoint of this, not just being a game, but like making a game with like dozens of tiles, super easy to set up and break down and tear apart for setup next time, is like amazingly cool. And it is a game that I have found already is one of these deceptively strategic games where you're told, here's your card, here's your tile. You don't have to play that card. You got other cards in your hand, but you got to play the tile. And you're like, okay, sure, no problem. And then by turn 3, you're like, oh my God, what did I do? you start looking at the numbers that are on the board on the cards that Matt mentioned, and you have to do those in sequential order. And suddenly you're like, oh my goodness, I am like in the worst painted corner I've ever painted myself in, right?
Yeah.
But there are ways out of that, right? You're not like ever stuck or anything like that, which I think is super, super fun. And the artwork is just really kind of cool. It's got that kind of very lighthearted vibe to it and everything. And, like it's a very easy thing to kind of jump into with all the different kind of pieces on the tiles and stuff and kind of like hidden elements and things.
Yeah, I love the drafting element of it because it creates this really great tension where when you're building out your city, you just need one type of building to create this amazing combination, and suddenly it appears on the next available card tile combination, but then you look over and you see that your opponent needs something from that one too, and you're like, no, don't take it, and then they take it and it completely explodes your plan. And even though that happens, it's still fun, right? So this is like Scott said, it's a mechanically really simple game, but there's a lot going on, especially when you have to take into consideration what your opponents are doing.
Now, on the demo and display side of things, it's for those of you when you bring this in and you put it on display, right? That there's enough, if you don't open it up, there's enough on the back for you to show a customer what the game looks like and how the game plays through and things like that. If you put it on display, don't feel like you need to set up like a whole game. You can set up like a couple of cards and a couple of tiles and the assembled components to show them how cool those look, right? But don't feel like if you've pressed for space in your store, don't feel like you need to set up the entire game in order to efficiently show off what the game is about, what the artwork looks like, what the components look like, and how the game plays through. So, all right. So that is Luna Capital. Okay. The big deal for us at Essen last month was Bitoku. Now, I wasn't there, but I heard stories from Matt. I heard stories that people came running to the booth to get Bitoku. Now, here's the tie-in to Silk. Bitoku and Silk exist in the same imaginary world, but Bitoku's like 1,000 years before Silk. And you'll see a lot of that reflected in the artwork, particularly. This is a big, beautiful game. And I'm not kidding when I say big. It takes up a lot of real estate. But, excuse me, but there is a lot going on the board, but it is so attracting to the eye, right? You can see from that. It is a lot of cardboard. Okay, so first understand that. But when you bring this game in, and this is going to be available in the first quarter of next year, if we can get it to you sooner, we will happily do so. But for now, it's available in the first quarter of next year. It is physically heavy. It is 8 pounds, unopened and unpunched. So it is a meaty game. If you get those kinds of customers, when they look at the price tag, which is only $70, when they look at the price tag and they hold it in their hand and they weigh it because for some reason that is a reflection to some people of what its value is, they're getting a game in there. Again, it all fits in the box when it's all said and done, because we try really hard to make sure that happens. But it weighs 8 pounds unpunched. It's 6.5 pounds when it is punched. I weighed it. I weighed my own copy just to confirm that. And but it's also a deep game without being overly complex. It might appear as such because there are a lot of different ways to score points, but it also has a really cool, like it says, unique mixture of mechanics for some players who like diversity of the different elements of the game. This has set collecting, this has tile laying, this has dice management and resource management, and it's got a lot of different elements in there, and each one contributes to a different way of scoring. So it's also the kind of game that frustrates the heck out of me because I've played a lot of games where if you focus on one or two ways towards winning, that's a path to winning the game. Not it's not going to win every time, but I can't win this game to save my life, and I love playing it because I focus on those two things. But there's a bunch of different paths that you need to dabble in a little bit in order to get enough points to really pull ahead and stay ahead and ultimately win the game. Again, it's a lot of iconography, a lot of Japanese words to learn. The word bitoku itself means virtue. You're going to learn a lot of this terminology because they're unique to different elements within the game, but they don't complicate it. And you want to come back to it because you want to always try something different about how you played it. As far as I can tell right now, there is no one path to victory. There are multiple paths to victory. And again, like a lot of our other games, setup changes the whole scope of the board every time that you play it because of the way that some of the scoring tiles are laid out, because of some of the beginning cards that start on the board, the way that they come out, right? The cards that you are dealt in your initial hand. This is an easily replayable game in that respect because it shouldn't get boring in the respect that there's always something different about each time you sit down to this game, right? So that's that
It's,
that. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Matt.
no, I was just going to say it's a challenging game, and when you talk about replayability, many people that I've spoken to after having played, one or two times, they tell me like, man, I just can't stop thinking about it. Like how can I be better at this game, or what should I be doing differently in order to score more points? And so it's totally replayable in that sense because people are really thinking about the game and how they can make the most of it. So
And you notice on here, it also has solitaire suitability. There is a solitaire play mode by David Turczi, who is renowned for designing or
One of the
devising
best solo
solitaire ways.
designers.
Yeah,
Yeah,
for his solitaire play. So, as Matt pointed out, if you're not good at Bitoku like I am, because I am not good at this game, I can actually sit down and solitaire play it to try to get better at the game. So you can even practice at it.
that's awesome. It looks beautiful too.
yeah, it's gorgeous.
All right. And then, so for me, I am very, Paris is very near and dear to me as one of my favorite games. Not just as a Devir game, but as a two-player game, as a fun activity. We have an expansion coming out again, first quarter of next year. We're hoping, crossing fingers, that it hits our timeline for the marketing campaign that we have been working on for this. This is a true expansion to Paris, so it is not playable by itself. Whoever buys this is going to need to play Paris, but then they're small boxes that look beautiful side by side, so don't be afraid to bundle this when it comes out with getting people not only to buy Paris, but upsell them by having them get the expansion immediately. What Paris Eiffel brings to the game, as you can see as part of the title, is the monuments within Paris that do not exist in the original, in the actual two-player version of the game. So now you're adding in things like the Eiffel Tower, obviously, the Egyptian obelisk, the Arc de Triomphe, the Louvre. Like you're adding all of these different things onto the board to enhance the play scope of the game. Really quickly, in Paris, when we get to phase 2 of the game, we are either going to play one of the buildings that we've drafted in phase 1 onto the board, or we're going to use an action, which is represented by these beautiful postcards. As you can see, the artwork here is the same style of artwork that you see on the postcards. And the postcards are different actions that offer us a mechanic that we can use in order to either enhance something that's already on the board or a means of scoring extra points later in the game. What Paris Eiffel does is by adding the monuments, it adds 8 more postcard actions that tie specifically to these different monuments to add to the 12 that already exist in Paris City of Lights, and you only ever use 8 of them. So again, going along that theme of replayability by variability in setup, now you can take them all together, shuffle them up, deal out 8 of them, and it's a different game each time that you play it. And each of the new monuments adds a different way of playing, or a different a way of getting these monuments on there. Like you actually build a cardboard 4-inch tall Eiffel Tower, right? There is a 3-inch tall Egyptian obelisk. There is a meeple that represents a gargoyle from Notre Dame Cathedral and things like that, right? You actually build the Arc de Triomphe. It's fantastic, right? So anyone that already loves Paris is going to love this game. Anyone that's thinking of getting into, or this expansion, sorry, anyone that's thinking about getting into Paris is going to want the expansion immediately when it's available, right? Especially since in a perfect world where a shipping crisis is not kicking us in the shins, right? We would love to have this globally available on Valentine's Day. And part of it is obviously because it's a 2-player game, but also because, Paris is so romantic, the city of lights and like, the city of love and like all that kinds of stuff, right? So that's one of the things that we're hoping to be able to do with bringing Paris back into stock and then having Paris Eiffel hopefully not very long after that.
And I think we're going to be able to do that. We had some good news on the logistics front. I'm loath to promise anything, but it's looking like we'll have some stuff. We'll have both of these available in January.
That's
So,
awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, the
Now,
other thing that's good to note is that Devir is really, really good at paper crafting, which I know may sound like a weird statement, but like we talked a little bit earlier before about Luna Capital's insert and how it's a punch board insert that kind of organizes everything in there. They're just really, really good at designing. Like, for example, the rocket tower in Luna Capital could have been really easy for anyone who's not familiar with paper crafting to just make a 4-sided kind of tower with an open end and that's it. But there are pieces on the bottom that support having more tiles in that tower, and it keeps it sturdy and it keeps it together, not just as you're playing, but as you put it back into the box. So the concept of like building a 3-dimensional papercraft tower of the Eiffel Tower is really, really intriguing given how good you guys do from a design perspective on that.
The guy who does all that sits next to me actually, and
oh, nice. I hope he heard me.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna share that. He'll be happy to hear that because
awesome.
He loves that sort of thing. Like that's as enjoyable for him. That's an aspect of the whole development process that's really enjoyable for him. So
very
thank
cool.
you for that feedback. Yeah.
Now, on the marketing side and the support that we are starting to ramp up for not just direct to consumers, but to help you as retailers to present this to your own customers, we're doing something very special with Paris Eiffel. So I'm just going to assume I'm the oldest person in the room, even though I might not be. But we have a marketing campaign planned for Paris Eiffel that no, Matt, you're still 21. Stop. We have a marketing campaign planned for Paris Eiffel that is well. Let me just go back a step. So if you're as old as I am, then you may recall from the mid to late 80s, there was a marketing campaign by Taster's Choice Coffee, in which case they put 30-second spots in primetime television, which was odd back then to advertise coffee in prime time. Right? That's usually a morning show kind of a thing or soap operas kind of a thing. But they were specifically trying to target a particular viewer. And what it was a 10-part commercial campaign that told a soap opera story, right? Guy is moving into an apartment, happens to live across the hall from this really beautiful woman, and she sees him unpacking his kitchen because his front door is open, and she sees that he drinks Taster's Choice, and now they share a common, passion for a particular type of coffee, and over time they're telling this story of how their relationship develops, where ultimately they end up together. And I can remember when I was a kid, I can remember my mom would watch specific shows to watch the newest chapter of that commercial story as it was developing. And so because of the way Paris Eiffel uses these postcards to show the actions that the players can take. One of the things that we are going to attempt to do here is the campaign is called Postcards from Paris, and it'll be a social media marketing campaign, and we'll get this information out to your sales reps to be able to get it out to you, right, so that you can share this story as it goes along. It's going to be told in 8 parts, where after certain time intervals on social media, a new image of one of the postcards will appear, and then this other part of it will be the part, where people actually write their, the letter on their postcard, and it's going to tell a love story between 2 characters, and each chapter ties into one of the monuments that's reflected in these different cards. And we hired a New York Times best-selling author to write this story for us, and the hope is, again, like Matt said, we don't want to promise anything too soon, but the hope is that the final chapter of the story drops on Valentine's Day, when Paris Eiffel is globally available in retail everywhere. So if we can make that happen, right, then you guys will have this epic love story that's going to be told to consumers to get them to come into your store and buy Paris Eiffel. And if they don't already have Paris, to buy that with it, right? The two games, the set, it only comes to $45, and you're going to be getting your consumers are going to be getting way more than $45 worth of value out of the number of times that they will play the game with either just Paris itself or adding in the Paris Eiffel expansion monuments.
And speaking about marketing campaigns and the like, we have a Dropbox for retailers that they can go to and access all kinds of assets for not all, but a lot of our games. So things like lifestyle photos, still ads that you can put on your screens that are in store. We've got video trailers. We've got scripts on how to sell specific games, so that, like, you can get how to sell Luna Capital in 3 sentences, these sorts of things. And if you contact us, we'll be happy to send you the link, and you can access all those materials and use them too.
I can make sure that link is in the video description as well, Matt.
Okay, great. Very good. I'll send that to you then.
And I'm just going to throw a compliment Matt's way. Matt does outstanding unboxing videos of our games. So
yeah, in fact, some people may have seen them. We try to put them on all the product pages as we get them. I know we have like the maze ones up and everything. So yeah, definitely. Those are also really good if you have digital signage. I know a lot of retailers will sometimes grab videos from here and there on YouTube and kind of make a playlist and just put those up as, like, ongoing commercials in the store and everything like that, which is really cool. Actually, I went to a retailer here in Kansas City this past weekend who is diametrically on the opposite end of the earth as me from Kansas City. I'm in the Northeast and he's in the completely Southwest. But he had this really interesting setup. When you walked in, there was a table that normally you would think, okay, this is all the new releases, but they were surrounding a television set. And he had merchandised them in a way that it looked as though the television set was just kind of like embedded in all these games. And it had like commercials that different publishers had made and put on there and everything. So it was really, really cool. So I love seeing the things that all of our retailers do to kind of, differentiate things and make it stand out and stuff like that, which is really awesome. So that kind of effort is really appreciated. I know that's one of the top questions we always get on the webinars is, what kind of assets or what kind of, tools do you have for retailers to be able to sell in their stores? And those are always very helpful. So
cool. Good.
So, and also for you retailers, if you ever need any graphics, right, that maybe they're not in the Dropbox, or you just need the cover or things like that, you can always reach out to me directly. Also, we want to meet with you in person when we are able to do that. So if we are good, we will be exhibitors at PAX Unplugged coming up in December.
Nice.
We'll be exhibiting at the Atlanta Mart coming up in January. We will be exhibiting at New York Toy Fair, and we'll be exhibiting at Gamma Expo. So if you're attending any of those, right? Please feel free to seek us out, sit down. We'll show you the physical product if you don't already have it in your store, and we'll show you any of the upcoming stuff that we will have on display there as well.
That was actually going to be my next question is if people wanted to get a hold of you directly, what's the easiest and best way for them to reach out to Devir?
Phone call or email.
Okay. Well, I won't put your phone number into a into a video.
Oh, no, my Devir phone number.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, we'll make sure to have that in the description below as well in the video too. So awesome. Well, guys, thank you very much. We're a couple minutes over, but we did start a couple minutes late. Again, retailers, I apologize about the confusion with some of the technical issues today. Hopefully we're going to get this squared away with Zoom, so that's not an issue moving forward. As a reminder, though, this is the last board game webinar for this year, for 2021. We do still have another supply webinar. It's going to be coming up in the next week. We will restart these again in January. We've already got a kind of schedule put together for almost all of January, actually, already, which is awesome to see. But we really appreciate you taking the time to join us, whether you're here live and taking time out of your day, or whether you're here watching recorded on YouTube. Really appreciate it. Like I said, if you are watching on YouTube, definitely be awesome. Feel free to give us a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and then turn on notifications so you can know when we have new webinar content put up here. We are working to get a lot more than just board games put into this. Board games still kind of dominates like 90% of them, but we're working to get more role-playing games, more supplies, dice, things like that available for everyone to kind of talk to the publishers, learn a little bit more from them. One of the things that I personally love about these is that it gives you a chance to hear the cadence and the tone from the publisher themselves. I've had retailers tell me, well, Scott, of course you're going to tell me the game's awesome because you don't want it to sit in your warehouse and you want it moving. And while that is technically true, I will be the first person to tell you when I think a game is not very fun. And thankfully, there's kind of an implied infrastructure here that if we have people on our webinars, they're A, a very good partner, and B, they're very good games. So I hope that that kind of transports through to everybody. But Marcelo and Matt, thank you very much, especially Matt, you. I know it's like, it's probably like 7 or 8 p.m. where you are there. So I really appreciate you taking the time to join us. And we look forward to having you guys on many more. And I look forward to hopefully one day beating my wife at Paris, but we'll talk about that on a whole nother webinar. So,
You got to get the expansion. That's the way to do it.
maybe that'll do it. I don't know. I have literally, I think I'm like 0-16 against her right now. Well, that's a longer story for a taller drink, as I say. So,
Right.
Awesome. Well, everyone, thank you so much. Really appreciate
Thanks.
all the retailers taking the time to join, and have a wonderful week in your stores. Take care.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.